Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Joseph Clough, and this is episode 558. I hope you're doing all well and good. Now, in this episode, we're talking about purpose. We're talking about mission, vision, ambition, to realize why we go for things, to realize why they don't come into fruition, what blocks us in doing what we want to be doing, or why we get into situations which we just don't want to be in. So yes, we are covering lots of different things in this episode. Now, before this, I got a message 4 minutes before I was going live. By the way, if you listen to this on the app, this is being broadcasted live on YouTube, which is youtube.com/Joseph Clough, which is CLOUGH, Joseph Clough. And that means you can join me live and ask me questions after this episode has been recorded. It's always nice because we get to talk, I get to talk to you and communicate with you, interact with you on the chat, and I get to answer some of your questions or observations about things, or we dive deeper in sometimes. So that is the benefits of showing up live. But I did get a message 4 minutes before coming into this show that I've got to promote. So we are running our NLP training in the summer. So if you ever wanted to do what I do for a living, if you wanted to become an NLP practitioner, a certified hypnotist, a timeline therapist, and also a coach, if you want to be able to start helping people. Now, and there's a couple of ways you do this. We tend to attract two types of people. People who actually want to become certified and help people. So to set up a thriving practice where, I don't know, you can earn, well, the way we teach it, by the way, we give you the business training as well as the techniques, the processes, because I remember when I first became certified, I was like, yes, I'm certified. Now what? How do I promote? How do I attract clients? How can I charge what I'm worth? There is a strategy. It comes down to lots of different sections. We actually give a whole 8-week program and live support in setting up your practice. So when you become a practitioner, you actually get taught the business side, which, to be honest, is probably not the most important part, but without it, I'm not going to say destined, but you're going to struggle like I did in the beginning, because we don't know what we don't know. Most people aren't good at business, and you've got to get good at business, and that will get into maybe this episode topic as well when it comes to our purpose. But we are running a training, and if you go to the website NLP Hypnosis Trainings.com, I'm gonna go ahead and put it in the chat on YouTube, and we broadcast this also in Facebook as well. So let me go ahead and put it in there. I'm gonna add it to the broadcast right here as well. So NLPHypnosisTrainings.com, and that is where you'll get all the information about our practitioner. Now, the beauty of this, it's also virtual. So that means you're able to learn. We still do the practices, we do the breakout rooms, we do the demonstrations, we help you post the program, and you get certified to become a practitioner of NLP. If you didn't know, I'm actually a master trainer of NLP. So we can technically certify trainers to be trainers. It's not something I plan to do, but I want to just go on the program so I can do that. But we are running a training. So go to NLPHypnosisTrainings.com, and that way you'll get all the information. We've split it up, I believe. You'd think someone like me should know all the details, but sometimes people set up things for me, which is great. So I don't always know my schedule in advance, but based on what I can tell, you will, let's see the dates. It is August. It starts August the 7th, and then we split it into 4 weekends. Okay, 4 weekends, and that means you become a certified in to start helping people. Yeah, you need to get insurance, it's super cheap. You need the business skills, we provide that. yes, you can be all over the world when it comes to being trained by myself and also Melissa. So we run the NLP school, which is called the California School of NLP and Hypnosis. And a great thing about that's where NLP was born. It was actually born in Santa Cruz. But go there if you want to learn how to be certified and help people. And the second kind of person goes on these, if they just want to get better, develop themselves, get better in their career, because all hypnosis NLP is communication. And you're using your unconscious communication in a far more tightened and specific, and it causes you to get bigger and better results, more happiness, more wholeness in health, relationships, and career. So go ahead to nlphypnosistrainings.com if you want to be certified. Best thing I ever did, I can assure you. And I want to be able to help you get there as well. So yeah, let's go into today's episode subject. I thought about this. I think we briefly spoke about it on, I think it was actually on the after show of the podcast. So it probably wasn't on the podcast. But today we're talking about discovering your purpose. Now, it doesn't mean you need to have a big and great purpose to save the world. That's one of the things that people think we have to do sometimes. Like, you got to discover your purpose. Maybe your purpose is just being happy. Sounds like a good purpose to me. Maybe your purpose is to do something that you love on the side more so. Maybe your purpose is to just get bigger and better in your career or your business. So purpose really comes down to values. And our unconscious mind runs our values. Now, what are values first, and why are they important? Well, values are the things that motivate us. If you have a high value for, say, family, you are going to be pulled to be more family orientated. If you're going to be more highly valued when it comes to money, the chances are you will be more motivated to get money. Now, maybe your highest values is about health, and maybe because it's a high, powerful value for you, you look after your body, you eat good foods, you exercise, you hydrate. So your values are the things which motivate you. They drive you forward. And it is one of the biggest things that the unconscious mind does, along with things like beliefs, the decisions it's made in the past, our perception of our past, our memories and associations, our language patterns, our personality traits, all of those good and great things. But values are the things which it causes us to go for something. It causes us to feel motivated. Now, excuse me, some of the issues can be this though. You may have a high value for money. You're like, oh my goodness, I want money. I need money. I've got to have money. But you're also fearful of it. It might be, if you can imagine, a value of money has a negative association to it. Maybe it has a belief to it, like, I really want money, but I believe money is the root of all evil. Or maybe I modeled my parents struggling around money, or you abusing and not having a bad relationship around money, and that is our value. So it's a high priority, but it's a negatively charged value. So that is something to be really, really mindful of. You got to be conscious of your values, and I'll get into how we do that. Because one of the tricks is, or the problems are, you've got values, they're happening, but they're running beneath the surface. So they might be just happening without you being consciously in control. Those values are just running beneath the surface, and it can be pulling you into all the not so good situations. For example, maybe one of your values is that, like, you really want a good relationship, but if your self-value is low, who are you going to attract into your life? Are you going to attract someone who has also that lower self-esteem? Or are you going to attract people who are going to take advantage of your lower self-esteem? So our values, self-value, specific sets of values, in other words, our career, our health, our relationships, our values, in all areas of our lives will be pulling you in certain directions. And it's important to get that. It's important to understand it. Otherwise, your unconscious mind is just doing it all by itself. And that's not a good idea. I believe the conscious mind should be the goal setter and your unconscious mind being the goal getter. But usually it's just going for it all by itself by being trained that way. So if you have negatively charged values, then you're going to probably get more negative results. If they're really clean and clear, it means ultimately you're free of resistance and you're actually more congruent with where you want to be, your goals, your outcomes, all those things. So that's one aspect to it. We got to make sure that's the case, but also to discover what our values are. If you don't know what your values are, it is big issues. It is so surprising. When I learned this, I was like, oh my goodness, I now know why I've had bad relationships. I now know why I went into this job and I hated it, but I kept on doing it for some reason. When you discover your values, you discover your motivations. So there are two levels of it, the discovering of it. Because we know why it's important now. I think we can all agree. Our values are the things which motivate us. That is what it is. And that's why it's important to know. But the two levels of importance are to discover them and then also to clean and clear them up if they are negatively charged. Okay. So how does this relate to passion? How does it relate to purpose? How does it relate to our mission and our ambition? Well, if your values are negatively charged or undiscovered, that dream of yours is probably not going to happen. I mean, you might fall into it. It might be a happy stance or something like that. But ultimately, we need to discover them. If you really want to be clean and clear, you need to know your values. You got to know why you do what you do. So let's break this down into some examples. How do you discover your values? Let's just say you wanted to discover your values for your career. And we're going to give you some other examples in, say, relationships or money or health and all those things. But we'll get the gist of it if we explain one of them. And I think career is probably the most transparent or more recognizable one we can really relate to. So, how do we discover them? Easy. It is going to be a process of 2 steps. The first step is listing out your values, and then the second one is putting them in a hierarchy of importance. And there's going to be a great awakener for you because you'll be like, oh my goodness, now I know what I really want out of life. Now I know what really gets me going, what drives me forward. So the first step is the discovering and listing them out. How do we do that? Easy peasy, even easier. You ask yourself this one question multiple times. By the way, get a pen and paper. Do this with me if you wish. Get that pen and paper because I want you to write this down. You don't have to necessarily write down the question, although it could be helpful, but I definitely want you to write these down because we're going to be reordering them soon. Number 1, the question is, when I think of my career, or you can do this for relationships as well, but I'm going through the example of the career, you ask yourself, as I think about my career, what is important to me about career? Weird sentence, but what's important to me about careers? Or my career? Or my dream? What's important to me about that? And you're going to trust whatever comes up. For example, you might go to a place where you go, when I think of my career, the thing which is important to me is money. That could be a value about career. So you'd write that down. Okay, money's important to me. If you didn't have money in your career, it may not be a career for long because eventually you have to get a job which does pay, right? So it's going to be an important factor. It might not be the biggest yet, we yet to discover, But you'd ask yourself, what's important to me about my career? Not present career, but just when you think of career. So once you write that, not that one down, but whatever one you came up with, you put it down on that piece of paper and then ask yourself, okay, what else is important to me about career? You might go, do you know what? Teamwork. Teamwork is the one that I want. So you write down teamwork. Good. Then guess what the next question is? What else is important to me about career? And you could then go, well, flexibility. I want to be able to have a flexible schedule. Okay, write that one down. Okay, what else is important to you about career? And then ultimately, you're going to come up with a list of around 10 at first. Around 10, maybe 7 to 10. And then you're going to get to the bottom of the bucket and you're like, I've got no more. But we'll get there in a minute. But if we think of examples of values when it comes to our career, it could be teamwork, it could be travel, it could be working from home, it could be night shift, day shift. Like, there are lots of different levels of what's important to us. It could be life balance, all of those kind of things. It could be of being of service. You see, it's one of our, almost like, if you've heard of love languages, we're looking for the love language of our career in this situation. Figuring out what's important to you. And like I said, you're going to get to a place where you've written down 7 to 10 values. The things that you think, when I think of career, these seem pretty good to me, but now I'm stuck. What next? Well, you keep on asking the question, because you may find another 2, 3, or 4 which you didn't know you had. In the beginning, they're pretty easy. So that's natural. Yeah, I want money, or I want, if it was relationships, let's go for that one. What are some examples of what's important to you in a relationship? Is it trust? Is it honesty? Is it sex? Is it experience? Is it travel? Is it intimacy? Is it connection? Is it love? Some people forget that one, and then they're like, oh my goodness, now I know why I've been in loveless marriages, because when I think of my values, it hasn't even been there. It hasn't even shown up. I haven't even been aware of it, maybe far down the list. So you want to be aware of the things which are important to you, and you won't know them until you write them down. So the questions are, the first question is, what's important to me about relationships? Or what's important to me about career? What's important to me about health? What's important to me about fill in the blank of the area of your life? But you're doing these separately, of course. One of the first example was career. The next question, because you got your first one, well, what else is important to me? And then when you keep on asking that question until you're totally spent of all your values. If you haven't got to 7 to 10, you got to keep on asking the question. Even at 7 to 10, you want to be able to keep asking to see if there are other values there, because you don't know what you don't know. So let's say you get 15 to 20 now. You got 15 to 20 values of what you feel is important about career, or what's important about relationships or health. Next step, you see them on that list and you go, if I could only have one, if I could only have one of these values, which one would be the most important to me? Now you got this whole list of 15 to 20 values. You've got the money, you've got the travel, for example. You may have work-life balance. You may have working with teams. Like, you got to choose one now, only one. And you take that one and you put it to one side. That's your number one. Then, having taken that to one side, so let's just say travel was really important to you about career. You don't want to be just stuck at home or stuck in the office. You'd then put it over there, and then out the remaining ones, you'd go, out of the remaining values I have, the things which are important to me, if I could only have one more, which one would it be? And then you're like, oh my goodness, it's getting tricky now, because they're all important, which is true, they're your values. But if you can only have one, what would it be? Now that could be Okay, the first one was travel. The next one could be, say, money. You go ahead and take money and put it to that side. So now we got number one. We got the value of number two. And then, what are you going to ask next? Yep, it's repetitive, but if I could only have one more, what would it be? So now you're just moving them over into this hierarchy from most important to, they're still all important, but least important, okay? So there's just like the hierarchy. So now you're going, well, I've now discovered my values for what I would love to do in a career. The first one in this example was travel. The second one was money. The third one was teamwork. The other one was being creative. The next one was, and fill in the blank, because these are just me randomly making them up. One of mine, by the way, which was always my number one, was success. In anything that I wanted to do, I just wanted success. In that good way, I wanted to make, like, I just wanted to do, if I'm gonna do it, I wanna do it in a successful way. So that was always my number one. And that way, I now understood why I always wanted to grow. I was never really good at it, the things I started out. I wasn't always very intelligent. I was a bad reader, bad at school, bad speaker, still am sometimes with my words. But you know what? I got a value for success and I'm gonna figure it out. Like, I'm always trying to find out solutions for myself. If someone has a problem, I wanna fix it. So that is one of my high values in life, ultimately. But you now know your values of career. Now, if you did this in relationships, you listed out all your values, you got like 20 of them, you really had to think about it for a while, you've now moved them over, and it could have been, well, love was most important, then intimacy, and then way at the bottom may have been, say, like number 10 or 12, maybe it was trust. And that might make sense to some people. And they go, oh my goodness, that's why I've always been in relationships where there wasn't an element or a good element of trust. Or maybe love wasn't right up the top there and it was way at the bottom, and that's why we were in loveless marriages, because we were operating and looking for the, say, loyalty or experiences or intimacy, but without the love. Does that make sense to you? You are now discovering the things which motivate you at an unconscious level. That's what we've got to discover. They were always there, but now when we test it, and we look at our values when it comes to our career, and we're like, oh my goodness, that's why I'm doing what I love. Or maybe it's, oh my goodness, I hate my job, and now I know why. Because my highest value wasn't there. My highest value was that travel, and this job doesn't allow me to travel. I'm stuck in a cubicle. So now you understand why you might like the process of the job. Maybe say you're doing random subject, just say you just love, let's just say you love stats, right? You love analytics and stats and things like that. And that job in the cubicle was about analytics, stats, and figuring things out, doing all the numbers. But because one of your highest values was actually travel, you're now conflicted because you're in the cubicle doing what you love, but now you're like, I don't love what I do. You do love what you do, but you missed out on the value of, say, travel. Does that make sense? You are discovering the things which drive you forward, the things which motivate you. So that is the first step. Discovering your values by asking, if I think about, say, health or career or finance or money, whatever area of life you're working on, you ask yourself, as I think about, for example, career, what's important to me? Then what else is important to me? Then what else is important? Just get them on that piece of paper. Second phase of that is, okay, if I could only have one, what would it be? The most important one, what would it be? Put that to one side. Now it's out the group of the numbers, or sorry, the list of values. You scratch that one off, and now you go, okay, if I could only have one more, what would it be? And now we're getting the hierarchy. Now, looking at it, you might want to rejiggle it because it was just your initial reaction, but now you can understand it. But here's the deeper part of it. You see, in the beginning, I said you may have a high value for something, but it may be negatively charged. It might have a negative association. You might have a high value for money, but it is so charged with scarcity. You may have a high value for trust, but you have the opposite belief that I can't trust anyone. So there'll be maybe decisions and beliefs or feelings attached to that value. It might be good on paper, but the content of that value, because of our past experiences that we've been through, all of those things has caused that value to be changed. So what happens next? Well, now we're in this discoverability aspect to it. You now know that that value is negatively charged, and you say, look, I have this value, I've got a limiting belief around it. Well, now you work on clearing out that limiting belief. Or if it's negatively charged with, say, sadness or anger or fear or guilt or hurt or shame, you clear out that emotion. There are a number of ways to do it. It really depends how you want to go about it. But obviously we've got the Hypnosis app. That's always good. New updates for Apple, new updates for Android coming out this week or early next week. Or actually it'll be out by the time you've listened to this episode, for we're weeks in the future when it comes to this episode. Just so you know, this was broadcasted on April the 27th. So you're listening to this in the future if you're listening to this on the podcast or the app itself. But we've discovered our values, put them in a hierarchy, and now it's our job to see if there's any, what I would call toward or away froms. The carrot or the stick. Is it positively charged or is it negatively charged? One example could be, let's just say your career, one of the most, maybe it was number 3 on the list, and say it was money. But it had a negative charge of scarcity around money. So in other words, and there's what typically happens with people around money. Money's good and great, by the way. I just think money expands who you are, and I like to think you're a good person. At the heart of you that's who you are. You're a good, great person. Got to let go of things, but I believe in you. I honestly believe that. I honestly believe that I believe in you. That's funny. But when we think about it, that money value might have scarcity attached to it. It might have, so like I was saying, the example for my belief about you is that we just get out of, like, we're in debt, we just get out of debt, we start to relax, we're out of debt, and before we know it, we're being pulled back into the scarcity. Some people are like there's a fire there. You get out of a debt because that fire is getting stronger and stronger. You're out of the heat, so you relax, and then you slowly drift backwards into the fire, and it makes you have to get out of debt again. That is why we can get in these debt loops. You're in debt, out of debt, in debt, out of debt. Some people stay in debt. Sometimes we have limiting beliefs that keep us stuck, and we want to let go of those. Now, my dream for you is to be the carrot. Not be the carrot, but operate like the carrot, which is where you're only going forward. You're looking forward when it comes to just growing, in other words. You're always moving forward. You're always growing and becoming stronger. Those are how values usually operate. They're either away from, we're trying to get away from pain, or we're going toward our outcome. Most people will be living the away from pain. Just human experience, limiting beliefs, limiting decisions, significant emotional events, emotions, all those things, which makes that happen. But the good news is you've now discovered how to find them, to put them in a hierarchy, to know if these are unconscious. Now you know them, and now you can ask the questions of what is there a toward or away from, and then you can get to work in releasing them. And I think that's pretty awesome. When I discovered this, I discovered why I didn't like what I didn't like when it came to my career. for example, my first career, nothing against the industry, I just really didn't like it. My only full-time job, which was for a year, which was being in insurance for corporate fleets of vehicles. And every one of those values weren't being met. There was one value which kept me there though, and that was the value of success. Because I knew in my mind, like, I'm gonna conquer this, I'm gonna figure it out. Like, I may have limiting beliefs to a degree, but that value was still there. Like, I believed I wasn't good enough at that point, but my success kept me there longer than I should because I wanted to be a success in what I did. So when I discovered that, I was like, now I know why I disliked it, but I also know why I kept going in that industry for a short period of time. I mean, I think one of the shortest one-time careers of mine, and the rest has been 18, 19 years in the transformational field of hypnosis and NLP and coaching and so on. But it made sense to me because we don't know what we don't know. Our values are the things that we really don't know about. They are unconscious. But once we become aware of them, we can start to move with them. We can start to change them. If you have a negatively charged emotion, you can use a process to let it go. You can then say, for example, there were something about how I can link this into a good topic on hypnosis. Say if there was a money value, but you have this limiting feeling about it. Well, on the hypnosis app, there is now a title called money blocks, and it lets go of your money blocks. So that might clean up the value of your money. If there, for example, there was one for trust, maybe you have a negative association to trust. In the app, there's one called Rebuild Trust. So you can see now that once we start to target our values and we start to let them go or clean them up, we are then becoming what? We are becoming aligned with our desires. And how does that link into our purpose? Well, our values will be dictating our purpose because the values are our drivers, and that is moving us forward, even if it's moving us backwards because they're negatively charged. And if we talk about our purpose, we do tend to think that we've got to live a great, powerful purpose, but it's not true. I mean, it's important to you to do and be you, but it's not up to us to feel like we've got to do something. Like I feel like my purpose is pretty big in the sense that I really just want to help as many people in the world as possible. Like that is honestly one of my driving forces with that level of value of success. And I feel that's been a big driving force to getting over 550 or so episodes out in the world. That's like 250 hours of just recording, let alone editing and producing and investing and all those things. But that's my purpose. Maybe your purpose is to write. Maybe it's just to paint. Maybe it's to read. Maybe it's to travel the world. Maybe it is to have that child. Maybe it is to be in a meaningful relationship. But you don't know what you don't know. So let's start to find out what that is by discovering our values, putting them in a hierarchy, cleaning them up, and being conscious of them. Full loop here, the conscious mind is a goal setter, and the unconscious mind is the goal getter. So we've got to be able to get our mind on purpose, in purpose. People say, like, what is the meaning of life? And I'm sure it's been said before, but I just like to change the words. I've never been diagnosed. This is going to explain it. Diagnosed with dyslexia, but I do see things like back to front sometimes, very mildly. So I'm not taking that as a label. I don't want to be stuck with that. But I always just try to flip things around. And sometimes when I thought about it, it's the meaning of life is just to get meaning out of it. And as simple as that. And your meaning out of it is your values. It's the things which make you feel good. It's the things which make you feel happier. So just discover your values and think, well, I'm going to just do more of that. If my value was to have travel, I'm going to look for more travel. if my value was to have trust, I'm going to look for how I can have trusting relationships, but also how I can develop trust within myself. What activities can I do to build that, to do more of it, to enjoy it? Only we can define our goals. And people say, you've got to be realistic. Now, sometimes yes, but on the other hand, who defines what realistic is? That's you. You get to define what realistic is. So clear out those limiting beliefs. That's a given, because then you are defining what is realistic in a very pessimistic way. But let them go. Work on them. Get the help. Get the support. Speak to people. Like, I don't care if you, for example, I have my 8-week system, comes with a ton of stuff, custom hypnosis sessions created by me. It is intense in transformation. It's a joy, I can promise you that. But it is very, very specific, exclusive, and designed for certain kinds of people. And I'm unapologetic by that, because I only want to work with the kind of people I want to work with, like people who match my values in a way, and people I know I can get their result. That lights me up. But that's not the only option. There is the app, there is the podcast, there's other people's podcasts, there's other books, there's therapists, coaches, all of those things. And I just believe in you. I want you to discover your values, realize what they can be changed and be better. And to close this off, right at the beginning, I did say about running our certifications. We've got only one this year. One hypnosis, NLP, coaching, hypnotherapy, certified training, and that starts on August the 7th. And then there's 4 weekends of Saturday and Sunday ultimately. It is all virtual this time, based on the stuff in the world. It is all virtual, but that's pretty awesome, because that means we did one not so long ago, and we had people from England, Italy, all over. It was amazing. And if you want to be able to be certified and learn my processes, learn how I work with clients, and if you want, maybe your purpose or passion is to become a coach of some form to help and make an impact in the world, well, we show you how to do that. And also we give you the business side. And look, to be honest, most practitioners are kind of part-time, and what we deliver is, although I never make financial claims, but our goal is to get at least $5,000 per month by doing what you love. And it's hard work, there's effort, there's no miracle and all this stuff, but there is a logic to it. There is a step-by-step system to be good at building business. You got to be better at business sometimes than sometimes your passion, because if you have no business, then you're not going to really be able to monetize it, or to be able to, and therefore not make an impact in the world. So if you want to know more about that, go to NLP, the letters NLP, which stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming, NLP, then hypnosis, HYPNO, SIS. I was just really freaked out there. So, not freaked out, but hypnosis, HYPNO, SIS, trainings, that's a plural, so NLP hypnosis trainings.com. And that way you'll get all the information. You can enroll there, and yeah, we'd love to have you. It is going to be fairly limited because we want to make sure we get that ratio. I hate going on trainings, and I've been to a few where they have like 100 people there, and like you get no one-to-one time with people. We want to be able to connect with you. So NLPhypnosistrainings.com, and therefore if you want to be trained by us, you can go ahead and do so. It's fun, it's exciting, it's the best thing I ever did. And once again, hope you enjoyed this episode on understanding why you do what you do, which then directly relates to missions, ambitions, and your purpose and your dreams. Because if you don't know your values, it's going to be tricky to get your dreams. So with that, I'm going to end this episode on the podcast, and then we'll just go on to YouTube and see what comments we had, see if we go deeper into it if need be. So I appreciate you all on the podcast within the app, and I look forward to speaking to you all soon. Many thanks and goodbye.